ARTalk one-on-one with Mr. Burgher.
Okay, so I think we should start off by talking about like the elephant in the room. Like we obviously have been gone for a while.
We've been gone a while.
Hiatus.
Do
you know? Thank you for repeating everything I'm saying. How long has it been since our last podcast?
It's been a while. It's I don't remember. I don't remember when the last one we did was.
Like 4 months, 6 months?
No.
No.
I don't know, but it's been a while.
Okay, so we're back.
We've retooled some things. We've redone some things, rethought some things, restructured some things, I think.
If you haven't watched us for a while, this is Art One-on-One. I am the pod boss, back in action, Nicole Jordan, alongside your professional artist and master educator, Mr. Burgher.
I'm always here. And
wearing his favorite shirt today.
Well, this isn't necessarily my favorite, but it seemed appropriate to break out the, America's Greatest Art Teacher shirt today, as we are going to jump back in action.
Yes, and we've really put some intention. This is what I'm super excited about. We put some intention into 2025 and bringing new segments to the podcast and just livening it up.
And I think that that's a big part of it, for me anyway. Like, a lot of the things that we were doing previously we were well intentioned. I think that but we just didn't put a lot of planning into it, the naming of segments and the structuring of things. It was a little bit more laid back. You know, I crank out got a book, write down some notes I'd never really used.
And we did a lot of planning the other night. I mean, we really put some thought into what we wanted to do. So hopefully what we bring to you like, and you can always give us feedback as you have in the past. We love that. So.
And we're hoping that we will be able to publish these onto YouTube on Sundays.
Yeah.
For the foreseeable year. And that's kind of our date of putting things out there. So you can find these on Sundays on YouTube or other podcasting platforms.
All right, so we will jump right into it. One of our first new segments is called Brushstrokes or Bluffs. I thought about that when I was reading it. I'm like, maybe this isn't such a great idea. It's kind of a tongue twister, but Brushstrokes or Bluffs.
Yes.
And so this is a segment where I'm going to say something that is either a myth or truth and ask if you know if it's accurate or not. And
I might not. Who knows? We'll find out.
We will. Here is the first, Brushstrokes or Bluffs. Salvador Dalí's The Persistence of Memory was inspired by Einstein's theory of relativity.
It was not.
You don't believe it was?
I do not believe so. Okay. I think that Salvador Dalí's Persistence of Memory was inspired by several things. Sigmund Freud would be a big inspiration to that. I think that he was inspired by soft sculpture, where like the weird kind of form that's in it is actually a deflated self-portrait. Like if his head was like a balloon at the Macy's Day Parade or something and it deflated, that's kind of what that big lump thing is in the middle of it, or kind of the right-hand side of the canvas. And I don't believe that Salvador Dalí really, to my knowledge, ever had any sort of direct influence by Einstein. So I would definitely be surprised if this was a brushstroke, but I think it's a bluff.
It says the truth is Dalí himself claimed the melting clocks were inspired by observing a piece of camembert cheese. Don't know what that is. Melting in the sun, not by the scientific theories. That's what inspired that. As I read this, and then I was diving a little bit deeper into Salvador Dalí, I did go into your history of videos, and there's a video on Salvador Dalí. Do you remember that video?
I did do as I recall, Hank was just a little baby when I made that video and went to the Salvador Dalí Museum in St. Pete, Florida, and took little baby Hank to the Salvador Dalí Museum there.
Yeah.
And there were a couple museums there. I don't know if those were his first art museums, but they were close to Hank's first art museums.
I thought there was a lot of really cool, like, he didn't seem like a dark artist, but he seemed like a very, like, nobody really understood him. Like,
yeah,
people that interviewed him.
He wanted things to be really obscure and really weird, and he did really quirky, bizarre things.
And I don't think very many people liked him. Like, a lot of people were put off by his self.
He's a huge self-promoter.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people that degraded him and looked down upon him. And as a matter of fact, when I was in college, when I was in high school, I really appreciated Salvador Dalí. And then when I got to college, the professors were like, don't like him. He's a self-promoter and a windbag. He's not a real artist. He made one good painting at the beginning of his career, and he basically rode the coattails of one painting for his whole career. And I kind of disagree with that.
I think you have to, I mean, in the art world, don't you have to be somewhat of a self-promoter in order to be successful?
It's not just called Art 101 for a reason. I put my name on it for a reason. Right. If you're not promoting yourself, who is going to promote yourself? And if you there's a reason that artists like Bob Ross, like his family went to battle over his name and his likeness and his library of content and all of those things. And that's just one example. I mean, that's gone on for eons, where artists and artists' families, and it's like who gets the namesake and who gets to take all the Picassos from the studio after Picasso's dead and gone, and
So that persistence of memory, that
yes.
was it for him. That was the only piece that really.
No, I mean
I recognize some of his stuff, so that couldn't be the only.
That's not the only great work that he's ever done, but that is definitely the cherry on top of everything that Salvador Dalí did, is his persistence of memory. Absolutely.
What other ones did you like? You said that you followed him in college.
I followed him. I looked at a lot of his stuff more in high school than college, but there's a lot of his works that very much had an influence on me. He put a lot of historical things into his works. He did several paintings of Adolf Hitler in a not very positive light. He put V.I. Lenin, the Russian leader, into several of his paintings. He put Mae West, the famous Hollywood actress, into several of his paintings. He did lots of really...
His fears. That was one thing that jumps out. You talked about him putting a lot of what he feared in his art.
Yeah, he was afraid of grasshoppers, right. And he was afraid of being impotent. He was afraid of all kinds of things, and he would make little symbols that represented those fears, and he would embed them in. And there were all kinds... Like, people were trying to figure it out. They were trying to read his paintings like we would read a Vermeer or a Van Eyck painting from the Renaissance or what have you. And his symbols make sense to him, and if you know the symbol, you get it, but they're very obscure otherwise.
Yeah. Anything else on Salvador Dalí you want to talk about or point out before I move on to the next segment?
We can just move on.
All right.
What's the next thing you got?
The next one's on you. It is the Art Vault.
Oh, the Art Vault.
So tell the listeners a little bit about the Art Vault.
So the Art Vault is going to be a segment that we're going to be jumping into where we're going to be focusing on the media that sometimes promotes artwork. This might be books, this might be movies, this might be, I don't know, something of that nature, but predominantly books and movies and television sorts of adaptations where artists and art is presented in a somewhat historic fashion. And just to kind of talk about it, maybe people would be interested in things, whether it's a book or a what have you, and or a movie.
Maybe we'll have to incorporate some places in there too.
It could be. It could be museums. It could be exhibitions. It could be all kinds of things.
Yeah.
We could expand that to be a lot of different things for sure.
So what's going to be our topic for the art
So
today?
the first one is this book on Claude Monet called Mad Enchantment. This is by Ross King, a best-selling author, and the subtitle is Claude Monet and the Painting of the Water Lilies, where he takes letters, he takes memoirs, he takes biographies, and he splices all of those pieces of historic documentation and weaves them together to tell I guess more of a story than just like an account of what happened. Again, he kind of weaves it together and talks about the people that were in his life, the people that were helping him create the water lilies as he was trying to get these on display at the L'Orange, which is it was originally a giant greenhouse. And so he wanted to have these put on display at that facility eventually. But how did he get there? How did that happen? How did the water lilies come about? How did he start to even create his gardens at Giverny in France, not right outside of Paris, but not terribly far from Paris. I've never been there. We should do one of these things, going to Giverny, and actually talk about the water lilies there on location. Anybody that wants to Venmo me some money or a set of tickets to go and do that exclusive thingamajig, be more than happy to accept it, depending upon what the stipulations are for it. But
last night we were dreaming about different vacations we could take.
We were.
That would incorporate beaches and art history and just, I don't know.
Well, there's lots of stuff. There's lots of places. The world is filled with great places to go view art, and Giverny might be one of the places that I have been very close to but never been to. But
it's more about nature? This is a place more about nature.
Giverny is where he lived. It's his house. Okay. And so he wanted to settle down a little bit. He was getting a little bit older and wanted to stay closer to home. So instead of traveling around the countryside, he bought some land and flooded his yard and made a pond with a Japanese footbridge. And
so this book describes this journey, or it has art in it, or
describes
a little bit of both?
It describes the whole process. It describes how he started settling down, how he and his wife and the kids decided to buy the house and buy the property, and how he started with the garden, and how that process looked, how he started to paint the water lilies, and then kind of the ins and the outs of his relationships with other people, the things that were happening in the world, with world wars and conflicts that were happening in France at the time, all kinds of different situations that were happening that caused his work to slow down or speed up. It talked about him getting older. Ross King does a fantastic job of telling the stories of how he's getting older. His eyes are falling apart, and he's needing. He's got cataracts. He needs surgery, but cataract surgery at that time was very new and very risky. And as an artist, he couldn't risk the blindness that could be involved. And so it's all of these things, all of these pieces and parts that Ross King really does a great job. And I've read several of his books. I'm sure that if anyone sticks around for the duration of what we're doing here, you're going to hear Ross King again. He's got several books that I've read in the past. I might have to go back and revisit some of those books. He's done some excellent ones that focus on the Renaissance, on the Baroque time period. He's got one that just came out this year on kind of a history of Italy, which is I have not read, but I'm kind of interested in reading. But at any rate, in just finishing this particular book on Monet and the water lilies, again called Mad Enchantment, I highly encourage people to go out, get this book. It's available.
Well, that actually sounds interesting.
I don't know if we need to give it a score. I don't know what. I'm just going to say I recommend it.
I mean, you can score it if you want to.
I don't know that it needs a score. I don't know that I feel
well, you
comfortable.
Brought it up, so.
I don't know that I feel comfortable giving it a score. I'm just saying, like we never really discussed whether or not these movies or books or whatever we're going to get thumbs up, thumbs down, 10 points, 5 gold stars.
How about we just keep it simple and like a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
I think it's good. I recommend. I mean, if I didn't recommend it, I'd just say I don't recommend it.
Well,
so it's
we
either.
Would probably talk about
so
it.
it's yeah. Well, I probably would. If I didn't like it, I'd probably say stay away from this piece of crap. But to be honest with you, if it was full of bullshit, I'd say I'd stay away from that because that's just trash. But again, Ross King, in the books that I've read of his in the past. He does his due diligence. He seems to put accurate information out there. He does a lot of.
So he's the one that does the research on.
I don't know his process. Now, I
just wondered if he interviewed him or
no,
he's not that old.
No, he was born in the '60s. I would imagine he's not old enough to have.
But he would have access to interviews.
But again,
and research. Right.
For sure. I think that he just does his due diligence in, at least it appears to me, that he does his due diligence in finding letters of correspondence between him and other people. The things that he's saying are they seem to be fairly historically correct.
Just think of how much harder that would have been for him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like now we have with computer, we pull it up, we ask the question
This is a book that came out in 2016.
Okay.
This isn't an old book.
Still, that's 8 years ago.
Right.
I mean.
So, I mean, and he's coming out with books, like literally this year he came out with
I know,
book.
but these people that he's interviewing to find the old letters and things like that in the archives, that would be much harder than in today's world where you just pull up the information.
And again, I don't know his process. I don't know if this is 100% historically accurate. I don't know if this is more novel like a Dan Brown and the Da Vinci Code, or if it's more historical fiction, or if it's just... But again, to me, he tells a story. He's a very good storyteller. He's very good at weaving things together to take you along a path of understanding where the artist is coming from. He presents Monet, I think, in a very accurate light, where Monet was kind of a baby, kind of a whiner. He wasn't terribly, he's kind of, I don't know. And, he liked his food. He liked his wine.
All right. So, you liked the book. It was definitely entertaining. And
I recommend it.
Give it a thumbs up.
I recommend the book.
Awesome.
So, there's that.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap that one up, and then we're going to actually jump into a segment that we started to dive into on one of our last episodes, and it's a segment called ARTalk.
Yeah. When we started wrapping things up, kind of in the we did, I think, 60-some episodes, which again is longer than a year. We went well over a year.
It does not seem like we did that many episodes.
And so it was a really strong... I felt like it was a really strong run, and we just needed to freshen things up and take a little step back and and regroup some things. And to be fair, we also had a lot of things going on. Obviously, you can tell we're in a new location. This isn't the permanent backdrop for what we're doing. There's some things moving. There's some wheels moving. But here's where we're at for today. But the point is that before we stepped away the last time around, we were looking at the ARTalk segment. Yeah. And so bringing that back and keeping that was something that we wanted to do. So,
all right, so here's your first ARTalk card. It says, when Rome conquered Greece in 146 BC, many Greek masterpieces were plundered and brought to Rome. Wealthy Romans hired sculptors to copy these Greek sculptures. Though the original Greek versions were often cast in bronze, the Roman replicas were made of marble. If you were a sculptor, what famous person would you make a statue of?
Whoa. What? If I was a sculptor, what? Can I ask some follow-up questions?
Sure.
Okay, what kind of sculptor am I? Am I like a Michelangelo Buonarroti? Am I a Don Lorenzo Bernini? Am I a...
It doesn't matter what sculptor you are. The
it does
focus
matter.
is who you would choose
No, it does matter.
to make the statue of.
Okay, it does matter. It matters. It matters.
Okay, well, you choose that, because if you were going to ask me that, I could not tell you one from the other. I mean, you should know this.
If I was for example, if I was like a Michelangelo or a Don Lorenzo Bernini type sculptors that were creating these very realistic things, I would want to have a character that was kind of larger than life, something that was kind of interesting. I would probably capture something in the realm of pro wrestling, to be honest with you.
Goodness gracious.
If I was more of a sculptor like a...
No, just wait. Okay, before you move on for that, so stick with that. Who would be your pro wrestling? Who would you sculpt in the pro wrestling field? And why?
If I it kind of reminded of myself of a Monty Python sketch. Anyway, if I was doing a pro wrestler in a very realistic way, I would probably pick someone that had like a larger than life physique or body type. Someone like
Andre the Giant?
Maybe an Andre the Giant, maybe a let me think, maybe like the British Bulldog, Davy Boy Smith, maybe a ravishing Rick Rude, maybe a character like that. It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be like Hillbilly Jim. It wouldn't be like a guy that was just a big guy. They had to have like a certain musculature body type, like a muscular type person.
Okay.
For that to work.
So move on.
If I was a sculptor like Jeff Koons, who sculpts things that are somewhat realistic, but also sometimes a little bit cartoony, kind of a pop art type sculptor. He's sculpted.
Sculpturist a word? Sculptor? Sculpture?
Sculptor. I wouldn't say a sculpturist. But he's sculpted individuals like Michael Jackson and whatever. But so I would probably, if I was a sculptor like him, I would probably pick someone that was a little bit more pop culture, more of maybe a John Wayne type, or like an actor or an actress that I had an appreciation for. A John Wayne would be a good one. He's very pop culture, although not very contemporary. Maybe someone more of a... The problem is that I'm running into with my brain is that I can't think of anyone terribly pop culture that I know their name. Maybe someone like Again, I'm running into roadblocks in my brain because I'm thinking like Clint Eastwood, but he's like 110.
What about someone from The Office? Wouldn't that be considered pop culture?
Yeah. Maybe Kevin. Maybe Kevin. That'd be a good one.
Yeah. That's what I thought of when you went to pop culture and present day sculpting.
Right. I like The Office. Good call. Good call on that.
Makes me think of those Funko
Pops.
Funko Pops, yeah.
And they're kind of sculptures.
Yeah.
And that's kind of not really Jeff Koonsy, but maybe a little.
A little bit.
A little bit of that. So it depends on the type of sculptor that I am, the style of sculptor that I am. Because I think that if Jeff Koons is sculpting a pro wrestler, although that's kind of pop culture-y, he's going to, the wrestler is going to look different than if Deborah Butterfield sculpted it. I mean, Deborah Butterfield focuses on horses. She focuses on animals. So again, if you're saying, well, you're a sculptor like Deborah Butterfield, well, it's going to be a completely different idea, a completely different thing than if you're talking about a sculptor like a Jeff Koons or a fill in the blank. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, the question says, what famous person would you make a statue of? So
right, but again, the style of the work needs to fit the person. You can't. You can't do. Well, I suppose you could.
I appreciate that. I understand what you're saying.
I suppose you could do anything you want with whatever you want. But again, I mean, I think that the implication or the idea is that you're going to create these lifelike sculptors like the Greeks and the Romans, these classical pieces of sculpture. Although that's a very small sliver of what sculpture is. And what sculptors do in the style of sculpture. It's very slim in the context of what sculptors could do.
If you were going to visit a place that had these different sculptures, where would you go to? What would be like one of the most?
One of my favorite museums is actually the home of a sculptor, and this is actually brought up in the book that I was just talking about. Where there was this hotel that was kind of this abandoned hotel, and there was a sculptor. His name is Auguste Rodin, and Auguste Rodin basically went to the government of France and said, "Hey, I'll give you everything that I have when I die if you let me have this hotel." As this abandoned hotel as my studio, and then you can sell tickets and redo it and put my.
Was he slightly famous?
Oh, he was absolutely famous, and so
I was like, why are they gonna?
And so the government said, "Sure, we'll give you the hotel if you give us all of your stuff when you die, and we'll turn it into a museum."
How fun would that be? That's like a show right now, isn't it? I bought an abandoned
hotel. Or I was given an abandoned hotel by the government. I don't know. Anyway, Monet saw this happening and unfolding, and he was kind of like, well, if he's getting this, why in the world can't I? I'm just as important as him. I'm just as famous as he is. And so he was trying to originally, he wanted the water lilies to be put at the hotel. And the government was kind of looking at it, and he had these very specific specifications for all of this stuff. And anyway, read the book, find out the ins and the outs, and as to why it didn't work at the hotel. But when I visited France, when I visited Paris, one of the best little museums that I went to is the Museé Rodin, which is the former home and studio of Auguste Rodin, and it's absolutely like the grounds and the landscaping, and there's sculptures out in the yard and whatnot, and the inside is like an old. I mean, it's like a 2-story. It's not what you would think of as a modern hotel, but it's a great, great big house. I mean, with lots and lots of rooms, and it's packed with his art.
Did he actually use the place as a hotel at all? It was just
a studio and a place for him to live. Yeah.
Wow. Is it a large hotel?
It's a big house.
Like a bed and breakfast type?
It's kind of like it's like a mansion. I mean, I guess the best comparison. I mean, it's not like 3 stories tall, and you need an elevator to get from here to there, or what. I mean, it's big. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the things, I don't know what the square footage is, but it's not the Louvre. It's not the Chicago Art Institute, but it's significant.
Right. How did you find that? I mean, it's just a pretty popular
Yeah,
tourist site.
it's a touristy place. Most artists that have lived in Paris have their own little museum in Paris. Salvador Dalí has a museum in Paris.
Yeah.
Pablo Picasso has a museum in Paris. Rodin has a museum in Paris. You got to go to Giverny or L'Orange, which is like in Paris, but L'Orange is kind of like Monet's version of that. Even though they call it L'Orange, they never really changed it, even though it's all his paintings that are there. Maybe not all, but predominantly. Anyway.
Well, that went off on a tangent, but
Sure did.
Interesting enough. Yeah, I always tell you always take so long to get to your point, but I liked how you got there this time.
It was at least acceptable to you this time.
It was entertaining, at the least.
So I suppose that brings us to the next segment.
So last on our agenda for today is a new segment that we're going to do called Through the Art Lens.
Through the Art Lens.
Which was kind of a, what do I want to say? Controversial as to what we were going to cover for this, right?
Sure.
But what we came up with is that we are going to cover something in the world of art that happened this past week.
Right. And there are all kinds of things. One of the things that I've been attempting to do new this year with some of my the shorts and the other things that I'm creating on other social media platforms is focusing on what's happening this week, what's happening this month, what's going on in the art world, what has happened in the art world and art history or what have you, and like in the calendar and whatnot. And
Right.
So I figured we might bring and inject some of those things into more of a longer format. We could talk about birthdays or people that have passed or trends or shows that happened or what have you. But I thought I would bring up something that's happening as we speak. This would happen tomorrow.
Oh, right.
Or as this is being put out into the public on January the 5th. January the 6th, which is the following day after this is released, that is National Technology Day. And so my question that I'm throwing out there is technology art? We've talked about this a little bit in the past with AI and other things, but and if anybody out there in social media world has an opinion, obviously, about any of these topics, throw it out there or whatever. But is it? I'm gonna lean toward the yes. Technology in the way of photography, graphic design, computer generated imagery, so on and so forth. I think that those are all forms of art.
I think an interesting thing to bring up, or that I think that technology is definitely art, but I also think technology provides almost like a hack for everyone to be able to be an artist. I can't, I don't have a creative bone in my body, I don't think, but I can get onto AI and I can say, can you create this based on this description and make it feel like this? And it's incredible what comes up, whether it's writing or an art piece or whatever it is. It almost is a way to cheat.
Right. And so is that cheat code into the art world a legitimate art?
Well, I think it depends on, I think, what you do with it. But if it's AI generated, I don't think you can claim it as your own, can you?
I mean, I don't think so, unless you wrote the program, unless that's your... And again, we've gone down this
Yes.
slippery slope before.
But now we're using it. I feel like in the last 4 or 5 months, I've used it so much more in, creating social media, creating marketing, creating things that I'm writing about, or letters to my clients. I think I'm diving into it more, getting more of a sense of what it's about, and I think it could be both ways. I think if it's AI generated based on what you have described you want, but what do you do with it from there? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you're altering it and making it your own, and this was just something that you used to kind of inspire you or put it together, and then you built it from there, that definitely could be a form of art. And there's different ways to use technology, obviously, with different software programs and things like that. That definitely is a form of art. But
yeah, but again, I do think that AI is way different than Photoshop. Photoshop is way different than lab photography. Lab photography is way different than, every form of art that you might go into in terms of technology. If you're using, what we're doing now,
right?
This is a form of art. The video that we're putting out there, YouTube and TikTok and all of that, I mean, those are all little mini art videos to some degree. They're all little works of art. I like to throw actual art into that, but some people are the performer. Some people are doing a character. Some people are, and to some degree, Mr. Burgher is the artist, art teacher character that I personify to some degree. And so I think that we all, how we embody that, or how we work within that framework of what technology is, or what it can be, is kind of interesting. But,
well, and even creating an app, to me, is an art.
For sure, yeah.
Whoever created the app for memes that you can put on your phone, and
Yeah.
there's just so many different avenues I think of.
Well, and some people are they're finding that viral video, that viral clip, those the little girl. This past winter, the little girl that's walking through the store. Yeah. With somebody, and they're like, I hate to do this, but I'm going to have to buy an ornament and a stocking, or whatever she says. You remember?
No. I thought you were going to bring up the ice cream one where she had to, they charged her $9.
The little girl, the little English girl that was mad about the pissed off about the ice cream. I mean, that, again, that's another one, but the one of the one little girl mad about or she's happy about sorry, I'm going to have to spend all your money. And maybe we'll splice that in there, but the point is that videos like that people will they'll take out the background and they'll put it into another setting, or as a wrestling coach, I get all of these different little memes where it's this is the parent in this situation, and you see the wrestling room, or the gym with the wrestlers or whatever, and then you have a layover clip of Will Ferrell from whatever movie, is that little meme clip, and it's okay, there's a kind of that creative,
right?
You're taking somebody else's thing and somebody else's thing, and you're putting a funny text on top and putting it all together and presenting it as a kind of an original idea with a bunch of found parts, and it works, And, it's very pop culture. It's very pop surrealistic art.
I don't know why, but in my head, we have this conversation about like what art is and like how, like what your definition of art is. And I keep thinking of like art is life in my head because everything is art if you think about it. And I disagreed with you in the beginning, but do you remember?
But see, now you're so much smarter than you were.
Yeah, you've enlightened me.
That's why I'm America's favorite art teacher, which, again, if you like the merch, you like the thing, you can go to redbubble.com and buy all of the stuff. You can buy this, you can buy that.
I am going to finish my story,
but anyway, finish your story.
Art is life. I kept thinking art is life in my head, and you know what it made me think of? What's the...
Life is a highway.
No, the show that we watched where there's a soccer player, and gosh, you have his bobblehead. You have the Funko thing. Of him. Ted Lasso. Do you know what I'm thinking of?
No.
Where he goes, football is. He always says, "Football is life. Football is life."
No.
That was playing in my head. You don't remember him?
No. Sam? The soccer player?
I don't. His name's not Sam.
I don't know.
Anyway, look it up. Football is life, but in its place. The only thing that came in my head as you were saying that is art is life. It is. Everything we do is the way we're putting together our house, the videos people are making, the clothes you decide to wear. People are being creative with what they dress, and it's all art.
It is. And I'm glad that you've come to that realization.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I'm not saying you were right. I'm just saying, I feel like I agree with you a little bit. All right, speaking of life, we have other things to get to today. Other things happening. So thank you for watching our first video back. It was exciting to be back on. I'm excited about the segments moving forward. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like the content we put together today.
And why wouldn't you? It's great content.
I think
you nailed it, Pod Boss.
Yeah, I think it was a good first day back.
Yeah.
It'll keep getting better.
That's why we're here.
Yes.
Keep enlightening the folks. And hopefully this year will be, some good content, some good conversations, some good things. Maybe we'll do a live every now and again. But we're going to do some, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Excited for 2025.
All right. Thanks for watching.
Bye.